bank account, even your home or business could be at risk. Now, here's the good news. Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax relief firm, can help to protect you from IRS collections. Rated by the Better Business Bureau, their award-winning tax professionals are experts at resolving tax problems. In fact, they've resolved over $1 billion in tax debt for their clients. Let Optima help determine if you qualify for the Fresh Start Initiative or other powerful tax assistance programs. Take control. Call Optima now for a free consultation.
For your free consultation, call 800-581-6482. 800-581-6482. That's 800-581-6482.
Optima Tax Relief.
Hi, everyone. 4 o'clock in New York. An alarming series of incidents beginning in the immediate aftermath of Donald Trump's election victory is compounding the fear that many in this country have about their futures. And it's sparking a conversation about how best to push back against a potential wave of hate. The FBI is reporting over the weekend that a series of threatening text messages were sent to high school students and people in Latino and LGBTQ communities. FBI saying this, quote, some recipients reported being told they were selected for deportation or to report to a re-education camp. The messages have also been reported as being received via email communication. That is after text messages were sent to Black Americans in more than a dozen states after the election. The New York Times reports that the messages, quote, told them they had been selected to pick cotton and ordered them to report for slavery. Some of the messages also made a reference to Mr. Trump. Some even claimed to be from his administration. But a campaign spokesperson said it had absolutely nothing to do with those text messages. The New York Times adds this reporting, quote, misogynistic social media posts also surged in the aftermath of the election with phrases like, your body, my choice, and get back to the kitchen proliferating online. The threats are not happening in a vacuum, of course. They come at a time when Latino communities are fearing what could happen if the Trump administration follows through on those promised mass deportations. The LGBTQ plus community right now fearing a rollback of legal protections and rights on the part of the Trump administration and maybe even the Supreme Court. Not to mention, this is a moment in which many Black Americans fear a rollback of civil rights. Add to that a moment in which women are anticipating, almost girding for a further erosion of their bodily autonomy in a post-Dobbs America. All of it naturally leading to a question that millions of Americans have a right to ask, which is this. What does the resistance against hate in America look like if many of the institutions that have traditionally been a bulwark in protecting Americans are now in the hands of the Trump administration? For example, would a Trump Justice Department led by an Attorney General Matt Gaetz be active in combating hate? Would it do the same kind of job the Biden administration has done? On that, the AP reports this, quote, Justice Department employees were already preparing for a major shakeup to the agency's agenda around civil rights and other matters before Trump settled on Gaetz to be the nation's top federal law enforcement officer. Donald Trump has also chosen Brendan Carr to lead the Federal Communications Commission, that agency responsible for the regulation of the media, among other things. On that, the Washington Post reports this. Quote, Carr wrote in the FCC section of Project 2025 that big tech posed a threat through its attempts to drive diverse political viewpoints from the digital town square. In other words, Carr is peddling the notion that conservatives are the ones being silenced on social media platforms. And many hear that he will advocate for changes that would allow for even more hate speech to flourish on the internet. Once again from the Washington Post, quote, Carr's appointment drew criticism from left-leaning groups, including the Chamber of Progress, which posted on X on Sunday that if he were confirmed, it would be up to Democrats to defend a content moderation protection policy that keeps the internet from becoming a cesspool. Countering hate in the next chapter of the Trump era is where we begin today. Civil rights attorney and president of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, Maya Wiley's here. Also joining us, former Assistant Director of Counterintelligence at the FBI, MSNBC national security analyst Frank Figliuzzi's here. But we're going to first bring in Democratic Congressman from California, Robert Garcia. He sits on the House Oversight and Homeland Security Committees. Congressman, thank you for being here. What is your understanding, or have you had access to any briefings from the FBI about the hate messages sent via text and email?
Well, those conversations are actually just starting. It is incredibly concerning, especially to House Democrats here in Congress, those of us on oversight on Homeland Security. These are threats that are being sent not just to LGBTQ young people, but to Black Americans, to women, and it should be very concerning to all of us. We don't know where these threats are exactly coming from. We do know that these phone numbers, these cell phones, these emails are being purchased en masse, and then these horrific messages are actually being sent. But what I also think it's important for us to remember and to note is that when you have a candidate for president that spends and has spent the last couple of years saying that immigrants are poisoning the blood of this country, or demeaning women, or demeaning working people, this is the result that you're going to get, is there are people that are now empowered that hateful messages actually are not going to be pushed back in this country, that somehow people can get away with this type of behavior and harming others. And so it's very important at this moment that, yes, we had an election, and yes, a lot of us are feeling defeated about the moment. We have to push back and fight against this. And in no circumstance should we allow people to receive these types of messages and not investigate it.
I mean, I'm thinking about the efforts, and I remember them being somewhat bipartisan, to confront some social media companies about the impact on young girls of some of the hideous content online. I mean, would you rule out trying to form a bipartisan effort to at least get to the bottom of where the hateful messages are coming from, which so far have targeted Black Americans, Latino Americans, LGBTQ plus Americans, and females?
I mean, 100%. We would love to see Republicans come to the table in a bipartisan way and investigate where this is actually coming from. I mean, so far, there has been zero to little interest. I mean, at this point, Republicans in the House want to do whatever Donald Trump commands them to do. And so this is very dangerous. It's important to note that we are seeing also young people, young LGBTQ plus people who are literally scared. We're seeing much more need to also support them. We're seeing call lines, the suicide hotlines shoot up. Are literally scared. We're seeing much more need to also support them. We're seeing call lines, the suicide hotlines shoot up. We're seeing our organizations on the ground, seeing more and more people actually visiting them, calling, desperately seeking help and advice. And so this is actually having an impact on real lives. So yes, Republicans should come to the table and work with us on these issues. But unfortunately, I'm also not holding my breath. They seem very uninterested to do anything productive at this moment except for help Donald Trump.
Let me read the reporting on what you're talking about, Congressman. From the Washington Post, quote, calls to LGBTQ plus crisis line surged following Trump's Election Day victory, with callers expressing feelings of isolation, as well as fears that they would lose access to gender-affirming health care or experience physical violence because of their gender or sexual identity. The Trevor Project, a nonprofit focused on support and suicide prevention among LGBTQ plus youth, said a third of its crisis calls immediately before and after Election Day were from LGBTQ plus youth who are also racial and ethnic minorities. What can you do? What can folks do to protect people, again, who are the most vulnerable right now?
I would say, and I've actually talked to some LGBTQ plus youth groups. I'm gay myself. I've told them and I tell others that we're here to protect and to fight for you, and that, yes, this is a very difficult moment. But what we're not going to do is somehow discard our belief in civil rights and the rights of all people. We're not going to somehow not fight and stand up for trans families and young people and gay people. These are core values that we should have, not just as Democrats, but as good human beings and good people. And so while the other party now in the majority want to attack and belittle and bully, I think it's really important that at this moment that we stand up for these groups. And by the way, when you're attacking gay kids, trans kids, these are children. These are kids that we're talking about with families. They should not be bullied. They should not be attacked. And everyone of good conscience and goodwill should be standing up for them.
What is the plan to stand up for your own colleague who's been targeted by Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace? Let me read my colleague's reporting here at NBC News about this. Congresswoman Nancy Mace said Tuesday that her effort to ban transgender women from using female bathrooms at the U.S. Capitol is a direct response to the election of Sarah McBride, who is set to be the first openly transgender person in Congress. She was asked by reporters Tuesday if the move was in response to McBride. Quote, yes, and absolutely, and then some, Mace told reporters, adding, quote, I'm absolutely 100% gonna stand in the way of any man who wants to be in a women's restroom, in our locker rooms, in our changing rooms. I will be there fighting you every step of the way. So that's happening up there. What is the plan?
Honestly, first, I am disgusted by those vile comments and these efforts. Why we are focusing on singling out one new member, a freshman member of this body now, and why we're policing that person and where they use the restroom is shameful. And we should push back on this disgusting rhetoric and actions. Sarah McBride has the support of our entire caucus and clearly of the people of Delaware who sent her here to represent them. We should allow her to legislate. And so this attacking of a member, I think, is gross, and it should bother us also that this is the first thing that this House majority is focused on. They're not talking about lowering the cost of groceries. They're not talking about making housing more affordable. They're policing where someone uses the restroom. And unfortunately, this is the kind of vile behavior that we should expect from them. And hopefully we can just continue to stand up and not allow our values to move backwards. So we stand 100% behind Sarah, and she's going to be an incredible legislator.
Congressman Robert Garcia, thank you for starting us off today on all this.
Thank you.
Frank Figliuzzi, let me come back to you on the text messages, and we'll make our way back to Nancy Mace in a second. What could be the different theories of the case that would explain that after the messages were received, and a lot of parents of kids got letters from their schools warning families that these messages were out there. I mean, they were targeted at kids, not adults, or they didn't spare kids. What could be going on that there's not any update or information on the investigation?
This is going to take some work. Nicole, you may remember, gosh, almost a year ago, the swatting incidents that were targeting so many people. And, you know, people were scratching their heads. Where's this coming from? Who's got their hands on home phone numbers and addresses of these people being targeted by swatting? Well, lo and behold, after months of investigation, guess what? The first arrests that were made were people from outside the United States and Eastern Europe. So this takes a while. So what does the investigation look like? Who is buying, if anyone, large lists of phone numbers? Who's getting a hold of, say, black fraternity numbers at colleges? How about students who are Latino and their lists? Where do those lists appear? And then you've got to say, where are the calls coming from? Are anonymizers being used? Almost certainly. So there's a counterintelligence question here. Is this Russia or a foreign adversary saying, you know what, we're not done with you? Yes, our guy won the election, but our main purpose is to divide and sow chaos. And boy, we have a track record of doing that racially. That's particularly the Russian MO with us. And so, you got to figure this out. Is it coming from inside the house, outside the house? What are the violations that prosecutors might use? Yes, this could easily be a hate crime. Yes, this could even be interstate communication of a threat to kidnap and harm. If you're telling people you're being rounded up tomorrow at this time,